My sister snatched my phone off the dinner table before I could reach it. Smirking, she tapped the speaker button and announced to everyone, "Let's all hear who the janitor's been talking to." Laughter erupted around the table. My parents leaned back, waiting for another reason to humiliate me. I didn't move. I didn't try to take my phone back. I simply watched. Then a calm voice came through the speaker. "Good evening, Miss Carter. I'm pleased to inform you that the board has unanimously approved your acquisition offer." The laughter stopped instantly. But that phone call was only the beginning. My name is Emma Carter. I'm 31 years old, and if you had asked anyone in my family who was most likely to succeed, my name would have been the last one they mentioned. According to them, I was the daughter who wasted her education, settled for a janitor's job, and somehow became the family's favorite disappointment. My older sister, Olivia, was everything they loved to brag about. She wore expensive business suits, drove a luxury SUV, and worked as an executive for a well-known real estate company. Every holiday dinner somehow became another celebration of her latest promotion, another excuse for my parents to remind everyone how proud they were of their successful firstborn. Then there was me. Every evening, I pulled on a Navy maintenance uniform, tied my hair back, and spent my nights cleaning offices inside a struggling manufacturing company. My mother loved introducing me to relatives as our hardworking cleaner, always smiling just long enough for the embarrassment to settle in. What none of them knew was that the uniform wasn't my future. It was part of my plan. 3 years earlier, I had quietly built a software design company from the spare bedroom of my tiny apartment. When a national technology firm bought it, the sale changed my life forever. Instead of announcing my success, I invested almost everything through a private investment group and began searching for businesses worth saving. That search led me to the very company whose floors I cleaned every night. I wanted to understand the people, the culture, and the problems no financial report could ever reveal. So, I accepted the janitor position without telling anyone why. Sometimes the best place to learn how a company really works is where nobody thinks you're important. 2 nights later, Olivia invited the entire family to dinner to celebrate another promotion. She chose the most expensive steakhouse in town, the kind of place where the waiters folded napkins with white gloves and everyone seemed to speak in quiet voices. My parents arrived dressed like they were attending an award ceremony. I came straight from work, carrying a small overnight bag with my neatly folded janitor uniform inside because my shift started an hour after dinner. The moment my mother noticed the bag, she sighed dramatically. "Couldn't you at least leave that thing in the car?" she asked, loud enough for nearby tables to hear. Olivia laughed. "Don't worry, Mom. She's probably afraid someone else will steal her dream job." The table burst into laughter. I smiled politely and opened my menu. That only seemed to frustrate them more. My father shook his head. "Your sister negotiates million-dollar property deals, and you mop floors. I still can't understand how 2 daughters ended up so different." I quietly replied, "Every honest job deserves respect." Olivia smirked. "That's exactly what people say when they have no ambition." The conversation moved on, but every few minutes another joke found its way back to me. My uniform, my paycheck, my future. I answered every comment calmly because arguing would only give them another reason to enjoy themselves. As dessert arrived, I felt my phone vibrate inside my purse. I glanced at the screen and saw an unfamiliar number. Before I could answer, Olivia leaned across the table, grabbed my phone with a grin, and said, "Let's all hear who the janitor's been talking to." Olivia held my phone just out of reach, smiling like she'd been waiting her whole life for this moment. "Let's see," she said, tapping the speaker button. "Maybe your supervisor needs someone to clean an extra bathroom tonight." More laughter rolled around the table. My mother leaned back in her chair. "Go ahead, Emma. Don't be embarrassed. We all know what kind of calls janitors get." I didn't move. I simply folded my hands in my lap and watched. The line connected. A calm, professional voice filled the restaurant. "Good evening. May I speak with Miss Emma Carter?" Olivia answered before I could. "She's here. You're on speaker." There was a brief pause. Then the man continued. "Excellent. Miss Carter, I'm Daniel Whitmore, chairman of the Hawthorne Investment Board. I'm delighted to inform you that the board has unanimously approved your $14 million acquisition offer for Crestline Manufacturing. Every smile around the table disappeared. The restaurant suddenly felt impossibly quiet. Mr. Whitmore continued as if nothing unusual had happened. All legal documents have been finalized. Ownership transfers at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. Before we make the public announcement, the board wanted to congratulate you personally and ask whether you'd prefer the employee announcement to take place tomorrow afternoon instead of the morning. Olivia's hand slowly lowered. She stared at my phone as though it had become something she no longer recognized. Across the table, my father's mouth hung open. My mother blinked several times, waiting for someone to laugh and admit it was a prank. Nobody did. I finally reached over and gently took my phone back. "Thank you, Mr. Whitmore," I said calmly. "Tomorrow afternoon would be perfect. I'd like the employees to hear the news directly from me." "An excellent decision, Miss Carter. Congratulations again. The company is fortunate to have you." "Thank you." I ended the call. No one spoke. For the first time in my life, the silence at our family table belonged to me. No one reached for their food. The desserts sat untouched while every pair of eyes remained fixed on me. Finally, my father cleared his throat. "Emma?" he said carefully. "What was that?" I placed my phone beside my plate and looked around the table. It was exactly what it sounded like. Olivia forced a nervous laugh. "No, seriously. What's really going on?" I took a slow breath. 3 years ago, while everyone believed I was wasting my evenings in my apartment, I was building a software design company. I worked every weekend, every holiday, and more nights than I can remember. Last year, a national technology firm bought the company. My mother frowned. "You sold a business?" I nodded. "For enough money that I never needed another paycheck." No one interrupted. "I could have retired," I continued, "but I didn't want to spend my life doing nothing. I wanted to build companies instead of simply owning investments." I glanced at Olivia before continuing. Crestline Manufacturing wasn't failing because its employees were lazy. It was failing because leadership had stopped listening to the people doing the actual work. My father stared at me. "So, you became a janitor?" "I became an observer." I smiled faintly. As a janitor, everyone ignored me. Executives discussed confidential problems while walking past me. Managers complained in hallways. Engineers talked openly during late shifts. Workers shared ideas they were too afraid to mention in meetings. Because no one thought I mattered, they never stopped talking. Understanding slowly spread across their faces. I learned more pushing a cleaning cart through those hallways than any consulting firm could have taught me. I looked down at the folded uniform inside my overnight bag. I was never ashamed of wearing it. Then I met each of their eyes. I was only disappointed that the people who claimed to know me best never cared enough to ask why. The next morning, I arrived at Crestline Manufacturing through the front entrance instead of the employee side door. For the first time, I wasn't carrying a cleaning cart. I was carrying the final ownership documents. By noon, the announcement became public. Employees gathered in the main warehouse as members of the investment board introduced me as the company's new owner. For a few seconds, the room was completely silent. Then someone from the maintenance department recognized me. "That's Emma," he whispered. "She worked nights with us." Soon more voices joined in. People weren't shocked because I had become wealthy. They were shocked because they realized the person who had cleaned beside them had chosen to understand their lives before making decisions about their future. I stepped to the microphone. "The first promise I'm making," I said, "is that there will be no layoffs because of this acquisition." A wave of relieved applause filled the building. I announced plans to improve safety equipment, modernize outdated machinery, and increase wages as the company's finances recovered. Faces that had looked worried only minutes earlier now carried genuine hope. By evening, local news stations were calling it an extraordinary business story. The janitor, who quietly became the owner. Back home, my phone never stopped ringing. Relatives who hadn't spoken to me in years suddenly wanted dinner. Family friends who once praised Olivia's career now called me an inspiration. Even distant cousins sent cheerful messages, as though we'd always been close. What surprised me most wasn't the sudden attention. It was what I never heard. Not one message began with, "I'm sorry." Instead, everyone acted as though the years of laughter, judgment, and humiliation had somehow disappeared the moment they learned how successful I had become. 3 days later, my parents asked if we could meet without anyone else around. We chose a quiet coffee shop halfway between our homes. When I arrived, they were already sitting there. Neither of them looked comfortable. For a long moment, no one spoke. Finally, my mother broke the silence. "We judged you by what we could see," she said softly. "We thought success had to look a certain way." My father nodded. "I spent years believing your sister had ambition, and you didn't." I was wrong. A few minutes later, Olivia walked in. She looked nothing like the confident woman who had grabbed my phone at dinner. She sat down, looked directly at me, and quietly said, "I'm sorry, Emma. I cared too much about looking successful and not nearly enough about being a good sister." I believed she meant every word, but honesty and trust are not the same thing. "I appreciate your apology," I said gently, "and I truly hope all of you grow from this." They waited, expecting something more. "I forgive you," I continued, "but forgiveness doesn't erase years of hurt. It doesn't rebuild trust overnight. That only happens through consistent actions." No one argued. For the first time, they weren't trying to defend themselves. They were simply listening. And somehow, that was the first real conversation we'd ever had as a family. On my first official day as owner, I walked through Crestline Manufacturing before sunrise. The building looked exactly the same. The polished floors, the humming machines, the familiar hallways I had cleaned for months. Only one thing had changed. People finally looked up when I walked past. Employees smiled, waved, and thanked me, not because my name was on the ownership papers, but because they remembered how I had treated everyone long before they knew the truth. As I reached my office window, I looked across the factory floor and quietly smiled. The greatest victory wasn't proving my family wrong. It was proving to myself that kindness had never been weakness. People can laugh at your circumstances because circumstances change. Character doesn't. If there's one lesson my journey taught me, it's this. Never measure someone's future by the job they have today. Sometimes the quietest person in the room is simply too busy building a life that no one else can.